So I've been grading your week 2 pre-writing exercise, and I've noticed that some of you are making mistakes. You're confusing a narrative short story with a narrative essay. And so as I read your pre-writing drafts, I've noticed that many students are confusing the narrative short story with the narrative essay. I am getting a lot of narrative short stories and not getting narrative essays. Sometimes I get a curious mixture of both. But basically the difference is that when we write a short story, you focus on the events. So you have a opening event like the exposition, then you have rising action where the climax, where the action gets more and more serious, and then at the very end you have a resolution. And so a lot of people have been writing a mixture of a creative short story that has a moral. That's basically what I've been getting. I haven't been getting a narrative essay. And the two kinds of writing, narrative short story and a narrative essay, have a lot of overlap and are actually very similar. And that's why students confuse the two. So when we write a narrative short story, we're focusing on mainly the events of the story. We're not trying to analyze anything. So we tell the story of exactly what happened to prove our moral. So if I would say, the happiest day of my life was when I learned to swim, then I spent the whole time saying, it was a beautiful morning, and the family went to the swimming pool or the creek, the lake. My father wanted me to learn to swim, but I was too afraid of the deep water. So my father just dropped me into the deep water, and in order for me to learn to swim, I had to tread. And that was like the happiest day of my life was when I overcame my fear of swimming. Okay, that's a short story, narrative short story. And I got a lot of that from your pre-writing, pre-writing exercise. And so in a narrative short story, you are telling a story to entertain the audience. But in a narrative essay, you are writing a 5-paragraph essay structure. And so when you write an essay, you need to have a thesis statement. You can have an introduction, a hook to grab the reader's attention. Then you're going to have the necessary background or information on the topic. Then you're going to have a thesis and 3 main points. So I'm going to quickly go over the difference. Here you have a narrative short story. And I wrote this one about my brother when he got diabetes. Growing up, I ate a lot of junk food. I loved to eat Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and Twix cereal. We also loved to eat Dunkin' Donuts, and my favorite flavor of Dunkin' Donuts was chocolate glazed. Then one night, my brother lost 20 pounds, and his body turned blue. Next thing we knew, my parents took my brother to the emergency room, where my brother was rehydrated with a syringe. We had no idea what was wrong with my brother or why he suddenly turned blue. After the doctors examined my brother, it turned out that he had juvenile diabetes. It was Easter, and all the other children in the hospital got to eat a chocolate Easter egg except my brother. The nurses told my brother that he could not eat a chocolate Easter egg like the other kids because he had juvenile diabetes, and he was given an orange to which he had to then put a syringe and learn to inject himself. And so my brother cried that day because he couldn't have his chocolate. And so juvenile diabetes is a disease where the pancreas stops secreting insulin. Insulin is essential for the body to convert glucose or food into energy. When the pancreas stops working and there is no insulin in the blood and the body is unable to convert food into energy, then that person starves to death even if he has eaten a full meal. The full impact of my brother's diabetes was that we could no longer eat those Twinkies and Dunkin' Donuts anymore. And in the house, we all had to eat healthy. Today, my brother wears a pouch that releases insulin into his body, so he no longer has to inject insulin into himself anymore. he still has to watch everything he eats and the calories. Growing up with a diabetic brother, I learned to appreciate what it's like not to have diabetes myself. This is an example of a narrative short story. And here I just tell the story of what it was like to grow up with a diabetic brother. So this is a narrative short story. Narrative essay is different. Here I use the exact same story, growing up with a diabetic brother, but I transformed it into a narrative essay. And so what I did was I summarized this entire origin story into 5 sentences into the introduction. Many of you made the same mistake. This is what I'm talking about when I said you need to summarize your origin story into 5 sentences in your introduction paragraph. This kind of paragraph is known as a dramatic entrance paragraph, where you tell a story to introduce the thesis statement. It's a little different than the funnel introduction paragraph that I taught you earlier. So growing up, we always had sugary foods in the house. We had foods like Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and Dunkin' Donuts. Then at the age of 10, my brother was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. My mother found him in bed, not breathing. He had lost 20 pounds of water weight overnight, and his body had turned blue. My mother freaked out, actually. Then she sent my brother to the emergency room. Then the doctors rehydrated him, and then my brother had to learn to inject himself with insulin to stay alive. And then now, see, 5 sentences, this entire story into 5 sentences. And then I use the story to introduce the thesis statement. Thesis statement is always the last sentence of your first paragraph, and it's a main idea of your entire essay. My brother's juvenile diabetes diagnosis changed my family's lives in 3 ways. I appreciated being non-diabetic. We were all forced to eat a less sugary diet, and we rallied around my brother to help him overcome juvenile diabetes. And so here you make a statement. In a thesis statement, you make a claim. You have your topic, juvenile diabetes diagnosis. Then you have your changing, controlling idea. And then you have your 3 reasons. That's the thesis statement formula. Topic, controlling idea, reasons. And so the 3 reasons then become your body paragraph. And so here, I appreciate being non-diabetic. And then the reason becomes the topic sentence of your second paragraph. A topic sentence is simply the first sentence of the body paragraph. And then after you match the thesis with the topic sentence, then after you write your topic sentence, I appreciate not having diabetes. Then I write 5 sentences about why I appreciate not having diabetes. So when I say in your feedback, write 5 sentences about this, that means that you write the topic sentence that I gave you, and then you write 5 sentences about that topic sentence, and that becomes your body paragraph. So body paragraph 2 is about I appreciate being non-diabetic. Body paragraph 3, we were all forced to eat a less sugary diet. And so here I matched it and say we got to give up all the sugary foods. And then I write 5 sentences about how not having sugary foods affected our family life. So you write 5 sentences about that. And then the last reason is the most important reason. So most importantly, as a family, we rallied around my brother to help him overcome juvenile diabetes. And then that becomes a topic sentence for the last paragraph. And then you write 5 sentences about that. Then you restate your thesis statement. And then I should write 5 more sentences, come to think of it, for this lesson. Now that I'm looking at it and realizing, see, even teachers make mistakes. Yeah, so if I was a teacher and I'm grading this, I would tell the student, you have excellent essay structure, but your conclusion paragraph is too short. Where are your 5 sentences? I have to write the 5 sentences down here. Anyway, so this is a narrative essay because we have to analyze what the effects of growing up with a diabetic brother was on my life, as opposed to simply telling the story of what it was like to have a diabetic brother. So this is the main confusion every class I teach that students have with misunderstanding the difference between a narrative essay, which has the 5-paragraph essay structure, and then a narrative short story. And both of these overlap a lot, and that is why people get confused. So for your narrative essay, just remember this is what we're looking for. If I'm writing a creative writing class, and yes, this is what you find in movies, your PTV episode of TV program, books that you read, science fiction books, romance books. So if you're going to write a book, this is the way you would do it. If you're going to write an essay, and you're going to write a nonfiction essay and a book about issues like abortion or gun control or policy or any kind of academic paper, you would use this format. And yes, you can use the 5-paragraph essay format also to write books, but it's on more serious subjects. So anyway, here you have, and so I hope you understand now the difference between a narrative short story, which is not what we need to do for this assignment, and what we need to do is the 5-paragraph essay structure of a narrative essay. This is what you're going to write for your essay 1, except you're going to double space this. I didn't double space my notes. Anyway, so here ends my video on the difference between a narrative short story and a narrative essay.